There's a little trend going on that you may not have caught on to yet, but I want to tell you all about fermentation on wheels. You might have seen this thing driving around here a little bit in the past day or so. Tara Whitsett is here. And at first, when we thought fermentation on wheels, what did we think, Jason?
Beer and wine.
That's what we thought, beer and wine, but it's not necessarily the case. What are we talking about, fermentation on wheels?
Well, with fermentation, you're dealing with the transformation via the action of microorganisms. So sometimes you get beer and wine, but sometimes you get foods like sauerkraut or miso, which is like a fermented bean paste popular in Japan. Okay. There are lots of different fermented foods, and you find them in all cultures, through all of history. It's one of the oldest ways of preserving food. And
it does preserve it, even though fermentation is breaking the food down, isn't it?
It does. It pre-digests food. It makes a lot of the nutrients more available to us, and it's also bacteria dense, so bacteria that is actually healthy for us. It helps populate and diversify the current flora that's inside of us, and we have a lot of bacteria in our bodies. We actually have 10 times more bacterial cells than we have human cells.
Really?
So it's really important for us to be consuming more bacteria. And yeah, it's kind of a move from the more processed food of industrial farming and more industrial food systems. So fermentation has been really big lately, and actually, learning how to make fermented foods at home, which is incredibly easy. And
it's easy because, to be honest, I thought about trying to make sauerkraut a couple years ago, and the process was just mind-boggling.
Was it
really?
Oh, yeah, and you never would get that, but you said there's an easy way to do some of these things?
Oh, it's super easy. I mean, I'm not sure if you were canning your sauerkraut.
I was just beginning, and you had to take it and then put it in a dark area and put some rocks on top of it. I mean, it was just a pain, and I said, I'll just go to the store and buy it. But what's one of the simpler things you can do?
Well, so it's really simple. There's sauerkraut you can buy on the shelf at the store, which is heat processed. Okay. If you're heat processing sauerkraut, it's a more complicated process because you're either using vinegar, or sometimes you make the sauerkraut first with just salt. So fermentation is simply chopping cabbage, adding salt, massaging the salt into the cabbage, and then via osmosis we get a brine. So water is extracted from the vegetable, and then we just pack it down.
That was the part that they say took a long time, is they keep packing it.
I mean, as long as you're adding enough salt to extract the water. I mean, you don't want too much salt. You salt to taste. Okay. It's important to taste the foods before you're actually putting it in the crock too. But it's a very simple process. You just pack it down, make sure it's below the brine. Anything that's sticking up above the brine, there's opportunity for mold growth, and that's where a lot of people get turned off from fermented foods. However, even that mold is not dangerous. You can simply scrape it off and everything underneath is fine. It's just like if you had cheese and you got a little bit of blue mold on the cheese, you wouldn't throw the whole block away. You would simply cut off that. I mean, cheese is also fermented.
So the advantages here are nutrients. You get more of them out of a given vegetable if you ferment it, and then the microorganisms that you get out of them. Is that pretty much the bottom line?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say it's the bottom line. I also think that it produces incredibly tasty, complex foods. And these bacteria are also responsible for a lot of the flavor that's introduced. So the sugars, when they're converted via the action of the microorganisms, they're producing acids, like I mentioned, and those acids produce the tangy flavors that we taste in pickles. Like vinegar itself is a fermented byproduct. It's acetic acid, and Acetobacter is the bacteria responsible for that. But we use that in canning just to bring that flavor profile forth that Acetobacter offers, because it has an interesting tangy flavor due to the microorganisms.
Okay, what else are you creating on your fermentation?
Well, I was going to say, you've explained fermentation very well, but what's fermentation on wheels? Like, is this something we can all experience because you're riding around, or what is this?
Yeah,
exactly?
so I drive a large bus around the country. I started in October 2013, so I've been traveling for about a year and a half, and I am in Des Moines this weekend. I'm teaching a class tomorrow at Forest Avenue Outreach Cooperative Garden, and I'm also having a potluck at Agricultured in Waukee on Sunday. You can find out more information on my website and RSVP for the events through my website, which is fermentationonwheels.com. But Saturday, I'll teach the art of fermentation, how you make this stuff. So simply, you know, like I said, salting cabbage, packing it down. I'm going to experiment. I make a different food every time.
What are you making this weekend? What do you have in mind this weekend?
I don't know yet, because I go to the farmer's market Saturday morning, and the idea is that I'm also working with local farmers, so I get, you know, whatever is local. I've actually been at a farm all week, and I would have used their vegetables, but I had the kimchi bug last night.
And you ate them all.
I had to, well, I didn't eat them.
Oh, okay.
I made kimchi, and a week later it will be really good, and 3 weeks later it will be even better. So, I mean, it also is a matter of time, right? We actually have to wait. You can't just start eating it right after you've packed it.
Have a little patience, but it's worth the outcome.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So if people want information, give them your website one more time.
It's fermentationonwheels.com. And yeah, just so people know about my mission a little bit, it's about bringing accessible education to communities all over. So it's by donation, open to the public. Please come learn about fermentation.
But you request that they would RSVP and let you know that they're coming.
RSVP is helpful. Yeah, because sometimes the crowds get really big, and I try to put a cap on. I try to make it so it's not more than 50.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Wonderful.
Well,
yeah,
have
thanks for
fun
coming.
while you're in town.
Yeah, thanks for
coming
teaching us
over.
something new this morning.
Again, fermentationonwheels.com.
Great,
All right,
thanks.
thank you so much.